And right then and there, I had thought to myself, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And this all started with my first audition, which I learned a few key principles from that have stuck with me even today. And hopefully as I share them, they'll inspire you on your journey of finding your passion. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hitting Your Mark, where I sit down with creative people who I believe are definitely hitting their mark. And as you can see, today's episode is going to be just a little bit different. I'm not in the blue chairs and I don't have a friend sitting across from me, but today you are going to be my special guest. I'll be talking about a specific topic, and hopefully as I talk about it, it'll inspire you on your journey and you'll get to know just a little bit more about me. Well, before we even get into that, I want to first thank you so much for tuning in, but be sure to like this video and also subscribe to the channel so you can stay connected with us and see future episodes that we have coming up. The topic for today is finding your passion. At some point in our childhood, we have all heard this one question: what do you want to be when you grow up? Now, for some of you, this answer was a piece of cake: a doctor, firefighter, a singer. Like, you knew from jump what you wanted to do with your life. And a few of you have probably even stuck with it and are now living in your childhood dreams. But for a lot of people, it just wasn't this easy. Maybe nothing ever really stuck out to you. Or maybe you did pick something, but then you changed your mind 100 times. Now, me personally, I hated this question because I had no clue what I wanted to be. And probably because I wanted to be everything. Like, I wanted to be a basketball player, a football player, a stockbroker, a lawyer. Like, if you can name the career, I wanted to be it. And there was even a small moment where I wanted to be an ice cream truck driver because I thought they made a lot of money. But when my sister told me that they did not, that dream died real quick. So I actually went a long time without having a thing. Like, no focus, no dream, no real direction. And that was frustrating because it felt like everybody else had a thing except for me. But believe it or not, there are still a lot of adults who don't know what their passion is. Like, you might have a job or you might even have a career, but it doesn't excite you. And that's why I believe that finding your passion is so important, because it's bigger than just picking a career, but it's about discovering what makes you come alive, like what lights you up. Even if you never make a penny from it, your passion, it just gives you a different level of joy, fulfillment, and even a deeper level of focus. Now, I'm grateful to have finally discovered my passion, which is acting. I've had the opportunity to perform on stage, work on film sets, and even now create my own projects. And this all started with my first audition, which I learned a few key principles from that have stuck with me even today. And hopefully as I share them, they'll inspire you on your journey of finding your passion. I feel like every actor has to remember their first audition because it probably went either one of two ways. Either one, it was so great and you went on to fame and fortune afterwards, or it was so terrible and you crashed and burned. Unfortunately, mine was the latter. My first audition was for this play called Moon Over Buffalo, which is a farce, which basically means over-the-top comedy. Now, I was in an acting class at the time, so I had a couple of monologues in the tuck, some stuff I was working on, but they were all dramatic, and this is a comedy. So I went back and forth about even auditioning for it. But because I wanted to start getting into theater, I'm like, Ben, if you want to do it, now's the time to do it. So I scrambled on the day of. Again, very foolish of me. On the day of, I decided to do it, so I scrambled and found a monologue. I barely memorized it, and I headed to the theater. When I get there and walk into the lobby, I am immediately intimidated. Like, I see a room full of actors, and they're all walking around with their scripts, and they're reciting lines, and I'm like, oh, I don't sound nothing like that. Like who are these people in here? Like, I thought this was a community college audition. Like, there's some professional actors in this room right now. So I'm already scared. But then the stage manager comes out and she says that, hey guys, because there's so many of you, we can't do this one by one. We're gonna make this a group audition. So we're gonna put you into like groups of 4 or groups of 5. And now I'm devastated because I'm like, okay, I might potentially bomb in front of the directors, but now you want me to bomb in front of my peers too? So super nervous. So my group goes in. And a few actors go up before me, and I'm like, okay, we got Meryl Streep, we got Marlon Brando in here. Like what am I doing here right now? So then they call my name, And I go up and I slate my name and the piece that I'm going to perform. And I start. And to my surprise, I'm actually getting through this monologue right now that I barely memorized. And I get to a certain point and I just completely blank. And to my performers out there who have blanked on stage before, it just feels like you are standing up there naked. Like somebody just took off your clothes and put you up there to embarrass yourself. So I'm like, okay, I'm so sorry. Can I start over? I start over and I get to the exact same spot and I blank again. And now in this moment, I'm thinking either one of two things. I'm like, either I can run full sprint out of the theater and nobody will see me, nobody will even remember me, and I'll never return to the theater again. Or I can just go and sit down and just quit because there's no way that I'm gonna make it through this monologue. So I'm sitting there in like 30 seconds of silence, which felt like 30 minutes. And then Miss Janie Jones, she's like, hey, Ben, do you have something else maybe that you can give us today? And I'm like, well, I do have another monologue, but it's not comedic though. Like it's a dramatic one. And she goes, Ben, just give us something. So I take a breath and I prepare one of the monologues that I've already rehearsed. And I'll never forget, Janie and Michael looked at each other and they were like, okay. And then I sat down. And leaving there, I'm like, man, I am never gonna hear from these people ever again. And I'll probably never even act again. This is a sign, right? This is a sign that this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. But lo and behold, that evening, I got an email that I would be called back. And it was for an ensemble role. And ensemble basically means you're moving furniture. You're not gonna have any lines in the play, but you'll be in it though. You'll be in the mix and in the background and stuff. Although it was a minimal role, that did show me that even though I was messing up, they saw something in me. Even though I came unprepared, they saw that I had some type of talent and that I can cultivate and that I can grow. Then I actually ended up doing that play, Moon Over Buffalo. And I am super grateful for that opportunity. And now looking back at it, that is really the training ground for a lot of the stuff that I did in the future to come. That's where I learned stage combat and sword fighting. And I learned about comedy, about how it goes in threes, right? And how you can be over the top, but you can still keep it grounded in truth. So a lot of stuff that I used in plays later on, it all goes back to that time of Moon Over Buffalo. And even the people, I met people in that play who are still my lifelong friends. And that is really where I fell in love with the theater community. So I am super grateful for that opportunity. So thank you to Miss Janie Jones, who unfortunately isn't here with us today. And of course, to Michael Madsen. Now, it was in this audition where I learned 3 key principles. The first principle I learned is don't count yourself out. Before I even stepped foot into the audition, I had already told myself I wasn't gonna get it. I don't have experience, everyone here is better than me. I had already disqualified myself before I even tried. And even after the audition, I thought, well, that's it. I'll never hear from these people again. But not only did I hear back, but I actually got a role in the show. And that show is what started me on my acting journey. You see, it's crazy that we are often the first person to stand in our own way. Before anyone could tell us no, we tell ourselves no. We let doubt, fear, and negative thoughts stop us before we even take a real shot. There's probably something that you want to try, but you've already convinced yourself that it won't work. You don't have enough experience, enough talent, enough money, so you don't even start. But here's the thing though. What if the opportunity is actually yours, but you never step into it because you counted yourself out too soon? What this experience taught me is that you never know how God will show up and work on your behalf. I actually heard my dad say before that God doesn't call the qualified, God qualifies the called. I had nothing on my resume, no real experience. I even jacked up my audition, but God showed favor and made room for me because I showed up. This actually reminds me of Jeremiah in the Bible. God calls him to be a prophet, and then Jeremiah says that he can't because he's too young and he can't speak well. But then the Lord reached out and touches his mouth and says that I will give you my words to say. God may have called you to start a business or write a book or even start doing a solo podcast. And you pull a Jeremiah and say, I can't because I don't have a degree, money, the people, or the words to say. But if you just show up, God will touch the job application. He'll touch your wallet. He'll even touch your mouth to qualify you for what he's called you to do. So number one is don't count yourself out. The second principle I learned from this audition is be prepared. There's a famous quote that says, luck is when preparation meets opportunity. A lot of us focus so much on the opportunity. God, if you just open the door, if I could just get in the right room, if I could just rub shoulders with Issa Rae, she'd put me on. But the most important part of that equation isn't the opportunity, it's the preparation. Benjamin White did not show up prepared at all for that audition. I showed up with a barely memorized monologue that wasn't even funny to begin with. Now, what if a casting director or producer had been in that room? I would have went under the category of actors that they would never hire. And this isn't just about acting. This applies to anything. What if you meet a publisher for your book, but you don't have a single chapter written? What if you finally get in front of those investors for your business, but you can't answer basic questions about your numbers? What if you go viral and get hundreds of customers overnight, but you don't have things in place to handle a bigger workload? That moment that you've been praying for can slip right through your fingers, not because the opportunity wasn't there, but because you just weren't ready for it. This actually reminds me of one of the best shows out there, Shark Tank. Entrepreneurs get the chance to pitch their businesses to multi-millionaire and billionaire investors. When it works, it's great. You'll see a single mom who's been running a business out of her garage land a life-changing deal. But then there are those ones who show up completely unprepared. When the sharks start asking questions like, how much are you projected to make this year? What are your customer acquisition costs? How much does it cost to make your product? And they can't answer, you can see the deal just fading right away in front of them. A great opportunity, but terrible preparation. That first audition scared me straight. Since then, I made sure I was always prepared. Not only do I show up with my monologue fully ready, but I have a few extras in the tuck just in case they ask for something else. And even if I don't get the role, casting directors have told me, thank you so much for coming in prepared. Because there's something about preparation, right? It just allows you to put your best foot forward. Even if things don't work out, one thing that they can't say is that you weren't prepared. And last but not least, the third principle I learned is to do it scared. You remember in school when you had a big test that you didn't study for? You would be praying that there was a fire drill or something so you wouldn't have to take it. That was me before my first audition. It felt like my heart was gonna beat out of my chest. I was so nervous that I was hoping the director got sick or they didn't have enough time to get to me, like just anything so I wouldn't have to go through with this. Fear took over my body and had me looking for the nearest exit. It's this fear that is what stops so many people from ever trying something new. The fear of looking foolish, fear of not being good enough, or the fear of what people will say. But here's the thing, fear isn't going anywhere. There's this quote I love that says, courage is not the absence of fear, but rather the assessment that there is something more important. People often ask me, Ben, do you ever get nervous on stage or when speaking in front of people? Absolutely, but I just do it scared because I know that what's on the other side of fear is worth more than the fear itself. Doing what lights me up, inspiring someone else, walking in my purpose. And if I let fear win, I would never get to experience any of that. But for years, I did let fear win. I could have started acting back in middle school. Like, I remember being in my 7th grade English class, I was reading a role from a short story. Everyone else was just reading it, but I was actually acting it out, like standing up and doing the whole thing. I got to a certain line and I didn't say what was on the page. I ad-libbed something and the whole class erupted. It was definitely a highlight of the day. When class was over, I left, but my teacher, Miss Carpenter, she came out and got me before I got too far. She asked if I was in drama. And when I said no, she told me that I needed to be because she was impressed by what I did in there. She thought that was something that I could thrive in. Miss Carpenter is the one that planted the seed of me being an actor. I left class that day actually really excited because maybe I just found my thing. But then fear showed up. Would I actually be any good at this? What would my friends say about me? Theater isn't cool. So I let fear hold me back. I never pursued it. And that's what so many people do with their passions. Like, you might have something on your heart right now, a story to tell, starting a clothing brand, or even going back to school. But fear won't even let you take the first step. And you think, well, maybe once I feel less nervous about it. But here's the truth. That fear probably won't go away. It's natural to be nervous about something you care about. But at some point, you have to make the decision. Is fear more important, or is your purpose? So if you want to see what's on the other side of fear, you just have to do it scared. And I am so grateful that I pushed past the fear and went through with that first audition. Because if I hadn't, I never would have discovered my passion. And I remember the exact moment that I knew for sure that acting was going to be it for me. A year later, I was in a play called The Comedy of Errors. I had landed the lead role. It was the last show and my family was there in the audience, so it felt extra special. I said my last lines and I went backstage to wait for curtain call. And in that moment, I felt something that I had never experienced before. It was like I could float. I was truly happier than ever. If they told us that we had to start the play all over and run it back again, I would have. And right then and there, I had thought to myself, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I have been chasing that feeling ever since. And it meant so much because for so long, I felt lost. Like I didn't have a clear path. But now I had finally found my thing. And I recognize that as a blessing because not everyone finds their passion. But here's what I've learned. You can find it if you don't count yourself out before you even start, if you put in the work and stay prepared, and if you're willing to do it scared. Then you can be on the path to hitting your mark. Well, I hope you enjoyed this topic today and were inspired to find your passion. And even if you have found your thing already, hopefully it motivated you to keep chasing after it. And if you did enjoy this, feel free to like the video and also comment below something that you took from it. And consider subscribing to the channel so you can stay connected with us and see future episodes coming up. All right, we'll catch you on the next one.